Hey everyone, this is Erin, and today I'm going to try to recreate the super cool character concept art that Mary Blair did for Disney's 1950s Cinderella. I have just a few colors we're using today. I've got my brushes, paper towel, my palettes, and I'm starting with turquoise. Ooh. If you don't have turquoise, it's basically a greeny blue, so you can mix together cyan and yellow. But I had turquoise, so why not use it? And I'm activating the white first, as I always do, activate that lighter color, and then I will slowly mix in just a little bit of the darker color until I get the color that is just right, which, there we go. It's, this very pale turquoise, sort of a strange, color for a skin tone, but this, I believe this was supposed to be the fairy godmother. This was like the first iteration. And Mary did a whole series of these characters from Cinderella that are just done on like a tonal background. And they're so awesome. I love these characters. I want to paint all of them. And I think this one was the fairy godmother. I'm just creating the angle there that goes from the arm to her hand and trying to get the placement right, because I wanted to use the same mixture that I used for the face for the hand. I also like challenging myself. I enjoy this sort of challenge of trying to figure out like where things sit in play in the picture plane. And I get it wrong sometimes, but it's always good to sort of challenge yourself to do these things, because over time you do get better at placement, at observation. And we'll talk more about that later, I think. But for now, let's talk about what I wish I had done differently. I really wish I had painted this whole piece on a darker background, like the original concept art. I believe Mary was painting on possibly like cardboard. What it looks like actually is the back page of a sketchbook. You know, you go through a sketchbook, and the very back of the book, the hard back, is usually cardboard, right? Like cardstock. So that darker brown color with the flecks, the sort of recycled paper look, would have been so cool, and that it would have been more like the original piece. So maybe I'll do that for the next character concept I paint. Anyway, it still works because this paper is a cream color, so you get a little bit of contrast. But right now I'm working on the veil, and when I originally painted the veil, it looked a little too dark, too crisp. The actual veil in Mary's piece is a little bit more diffuse, so I'm just adding some water, cleaned off my brush there, getting off the excess water, and just going back over with this lighter sort of turquoise white color, just to blend out the veil and the face. Yeah, so I mentioned that this, sorry everybody. Every video I do that. But I'm so into these characters that she did. They have strange color combinations, and this one, if it was supposed to be the fairy godmother, she's got like such a witchy look to her, which I really love. She's got this pointed black hat and these really pointy shoes, and I'm making her hair color right now, which is white, ultramarine blue, which is a warm blue, and then a little bit of magenta. It's like a slightly purpley blue, almost like a periwinkle. And what a great color for hair. I think I may have had my hair was almost this color back in the 90s. Blue was definitely not the color my hair should have been. I looked good with yellow hair. I had like canary yellow hair once. That really worked. Anyway, the color combinations that Mary used were one of the things that really stood her apart from the other artists at Disney. And she actually worked at Disney in the early 1940s, then left to go do some fine art and didn't really want to work as a cog in the animation wheel. But she ended up going back to Disney after taking this trip with a bunch of animators that Disney took to South America. And her husband worked there as an animator, and so he convinced her, and Walt Disney wanted her to come. So she went off to South America with all these artists, and she became obsessed with like all the colors and the different cultures that she was being exposed to and the patterns. And when she came back to the States, she went back to work for Disney and sort of brought with her all this new inspiration. and she started using these very strange color combinations, which at the time were strange, you know. And here you can see in the original piece that nice darker background with sort of the flecks of recycled paper. But this combination of magenta and purple, so these were colors that were almost directly right out of the tube, which was sort of unheard of at the time. And she was painting a lot more like modernist artists like Matisse, and abstracting shapes and painting flat colors instead of tonally, you know, blending colors and stuff. So yeah, Disney was just blown away. He thought she was like the future of animation. And so with Cinderella, she was given a lot of artistic license responsibility. She did a lot of the art direction for some of the scenes. In fact, one of the coolest scenes of that entire movie of Cinderella is when the sisters are ripping apart Cinderella's dress, the dress that the mice made for her. Did the birds make it too? All the animals, let's say. Anyway, they ripped apart her dress, and as they're ripping the pieces off, each time they rip something, the background becomes more and more red. And that was the kind of, you know, color contribution Mary had with the movie, just adding to the mood. Okay, so here we're starting her weird medieval headpiece, and I've used magenta and white. And yeah, just focusing on the shapes. So I find if I look at when I'm replicating concept art, or even, you know, if I'm painting from reference or from nature, especially when I'm drawing people, I think of them all as like simple shapes, just simple shapes. Sometimes they're more nuanced shapes, but if you think of things as just shapes, it becomes a lot less intimidating. So here I am trying to practice the shapes, and now I'm working on the shape of her sleeve. This pink little part jutting out. I mean, wouldn't you want this cloak? This cloak is so dope. So I don't know when the last time I said something was dope, but this cloak is dope. It's, yeah, she's wearing like two pieces. And I sort of estimated where these little parts were sticking out, and it worked out. It worked out. So yeah, now we get to do the black, and this is where it all comes together. I love adding black to these pieces. Usually comes at the end, right? You want to start with your lighter colors and bring in your colors after, so you can sort of perfect shapes. And here I'm testing out my brush, going from thick to thin. This is called a calligraphic line, and it's really about pressure. So here, very little pressure, then pressing a bit harder to get a thicker line, and looking at that piece of concept art to get the nuances of this shape, because this shape sort of, you know, it's got, like, there's little bends and crinkles in the hat. So I want to get those right. And yeah, using a number 6 brush, you really do have to be aware of the pressure, because the brush is thicker, but it has a thin tip. So you can go from very, very thin to quite thick. Brush holds a lot of paint, so it's useful to get used to a number 6 brush. Yeah, there we go. And with students, like right now I'm teaching a group of students through Zoom. We're doing replicants, and yeah, one of the things we're practicing is using this number 6 brush, using a bigger brush to get smaller details. And one of my students actually taught me something really cool. So I'm always talking about holding the brush really close to the bristles if you want more control. And one of my students, Julian, was saying that he was getting paint all over his fingertips. He's like, yeah, there's paint all over my fingers, because he was holding it so close to the tip. But he was able to get these really beautiful ripples in a pond that were very controlled. And so I was like, oh, I need to hold it even closer to the tip. Anyway, so we're painting in the black cloak. And yeah, again, instead of drawing in the line, the arm, the shoulder, all of it, instead of drawing any of it in, I'm just really focusing on looking at that reference and then trusting myself. I usually do like I usually create the line first in my imagination, sort of draw it out without actually touching the page, and then I go for it. And this is a good practice to get into, because the more you do it, the more your brain, I guess, tunes into observing. Like the easier it gets to paint from reference or to draw from reference. So I think challenging yourself in that way, not drawing things out. I don't let my students draw anything out first. And it's, yeah, in the long run, you'll be better off for it, I think. So just filling this out. Now I could have done the top part of this cloak a little bit lighter, maybe just with a bit of yellow in it, because if you look at the original piece, there's a slight variation between the cloak and the dress underneath. And the cloak is a little bit lighter slightly and has like a greenish bias to it, but this turned out great. In fact, I really want to create this same piece but larger, and I will use a darker background, and I'd like to frame it and put it up in my house, and and it would be free, whereas these pieces go for like $40,000 on auction. At least people realize the genius of Mary Blair, right? Now coming up are her adorable shoes. These shoes are, I mean, they're next level. Look at that. They're so cool. I used to have shoes like this back in the late 80s, early 90s. I wore extremely pointy John Fluvog black shoes that had like these big silver buckles, and I would wear black like MC Hammer kind of pants. It was like hip hop goth, I guess, is what we were without knowing it. Anyway, love the shoes. Really cool. I love the little nuanced line in that one shoe, that kind of curve. It's great. And now we're just fixing up the face here, putting another coat of the lighter weird skin tone, and then creating her scepter or her magic wand here. And again, it's hard to see it because the background's so light, but it does show up a little bit. Painting a straight line is tough, obviously, so I do it in smaller strokes. That tends to help the process, getting a straighter line. And and then adding these little cute details. So there's a whole series of these. Would you like to see me paint more of these characters? What do you think? Could be something that I do every couple months, is bring out another character. They're so good. Go look them up. Maybe I'll put a link. I don't even know what I'd link this to. I found this picture on Pinterest, but there's a lot of these and they're so cool. So you can see I twisted my brush. I did what I call the squeegee method, where I twist my brush on the palette to get a really thin tip. And now we're putting in some of the details to show like the articulation of the cloak, like where the arms are in the cloak. However, this line that I'm about to do, I do it too straight. Like it's not curved enough. It's not leading up to that sleeve. So I just paint right over it. So handy. And I get rid of some of that one as well. I break the line, just looks a little better like that. And then I can redo that angle. Doing a little touch up around her chin. This is what I love about black paint. It covers up so many mistakes, and this is why we use the darkest color last, so you can sharpen things up. And I've got the turquoise white mixture that I use for the skin, added a little bit of black to make it sort of this deeper gray turquoise, and doing her face. These eyes are so cool. And this is where I use the technique that my student Julian mentioned, where you're like actually touching the brush at this point because you're trying to get as much control as possible. The mouth, not perfect, but I don't know, it's got some sass to it. I'm okay with it. Okay, this part's super fun. This is where we're going to do the transparent fabric that is wrapping around her hat, coming down across her chest, over her face a little bit. And there's a little bit of magic over here coming off of her magic wand. All of it is really watered down light turquoise. So watered it down quite a bit so you can see the black from behind it. And this is where I like acrylic gouache because I'm not reactivating that black when I do that. Now I'm getting my dry brush. It hasn't been put in water, so it is truly a dry brush. Dipped it into that turquoise mixture, dabbed off a little bit, and then I'm just, dab, creating that texture. So this is sort of like, I guess this fabric is like a taffeta. I don't really know. It's see-through, but it has a little bit of texture in it. And that was fun to do. I did a lighter version of it, more of a transparent, and then dabbing it in the paint without getting any of the excess off, or the excess off, so I can create a darker version of the dry brush. So you've got, a variation happening. It just makes it look a little more like taffeta, I guess. Up in the top corner there, getting rid of the excess pink and white mixture. And I should have worked on a bigger piece of paper because that corner in the long run really pissed me off. I wanted to be able to, you know, put this piece up on the wall possibly, so I ended up cutting it all out and making a weird shape. But anyway, back to the scarf here. I think this would be an awesome Halloween costume. What do you think? I don't think it would be very hard to do. I want this outfit anyway. So this might be it next Halloween. And then people would ask me what I am, and I'd be like, I think I'm the fairy godmother before she was cute. When she was like a witch, more of a witch. If you happen to know who this character was supposed to be, I guess I could look into it, but like, let me know. Who do you think it is? It wouldn't, yeah, it's gotta be the fairy godmother. Using my number 3 brush now. This is a lovely little brush that one of my Emily Carr students gave to me. It was not an expensive brush, they said. So yeah, I'm impressed. Gives a really nice fine line. And we're doing the details of the fabric here, the sort of folds in the fabric, tying it all together. Twisting my brush to get a fine tip and swooshing it across. It's fabulous. Yeah. So this was a really quick piece to do. I painted this this whole thing in under an hour. I did have to do a quicker video, as I mentioned in the last video. It's been a very busy summer, and so I'm trying to do quicker videos here. But yeah, I think this would be a good one to try out if you're just starting off with gouache, or yeah, it wasn't too hard to do. This is one of the easier ones that I've done, and a good one to practice different techniques like the dry brush technique. There we go, a little swoosh around the bottom. And the last detail that I'm going to do here in a moment is a little bit of magic. So putting in a couple of dots. Oh, we got to put in her hair details. This is the color I used for her hair, plus a little more black, or a little bit of black and a little more ultramarine, and then we can give some detail. That looks lovely. And there we go. Okay, and last but not least, a couple dots of magic in her magical swoosh. You all know how much I love a swoosh. And there it is. Yay. So we're all done. Thank you so much for watching. Here it is cut out in its weird shape. Someone's getting this as a Christmas card or something. Boop, and a boop to the shoe. And thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all again soon.